Okay, we'll get started. Everyone see my screen? Okay. I don't have a whole lot of things to start out with, but hopefully you guys have some questions. Just a couple things that I've gotten a few questions about in the last couple of weeks is a lot of agencies that were not using integration in the past, that may be now, are having problems with it. The first thing you need to do is go to Manage Users and have a look at your user settings. And you'll see for the travel impressions, Carnival, EGT, Apple, all of those right there. You need to make sure that your login information is in here. Usually it's your IATA. EGT, you can just fill it out, and sign back in, and it should work. If you don't have anything in here for Carnival or Apple or TI, email help@vacationcrm with that login, and then we have to go to the suppliers and have them activate it for your system. And also with Carnival, I will email you back a code that works for your agency, so that's kind of a three-step process. So that's that. If you have any questions about integration, please let me know. I'll be glad to get you started if you've never done it before. Another thing is I've had a couple people ask me, they've had trips that aren't showing up in the final payments due. The box that tags it to go into there is actually on the trip screen. It'll be right here, it's final payment due date. So you have to make sure that's filled out for it to show up on your dashboard. If it's not, that's probably what it is. And does anyone else have any general questions about the system, things you'd like to know more about, anything like that? Okay, well I can go over a couple more things. I mentioned on Facebook, but for those of you that don't check that, I've been making a lot of short how-to videos, demos on the Vacation CRM webpage, so you can see I'm breaking them down into single subjects, so email income system, profile relationships. I recommend sorting them by date, so you can see which ones are the newer ones. There are some older things on here that are about a year ago. The system hasn't changed that much, in fact, where if you watch these, it's not going to work that way anymore, but the older ones are going to have some of the newer features on there. So I would start at the newest and work my way down. Check it, once every couple of weeks, because they are going to be updated over the next 2 weeks probably. If you have anything you want to see a video for, email me, say something on Facebook, and I will make that a priority. The next videos that I make. And API, I've gotten a lot of questions about that too. It's very straightforward as far as what you need to do. The form's already built. You just need to have them put on your website. So if you have someone who does your website maintenance, they'll probably know exactly what to do. Find those links. You go to settings, and system settings, and then scroll down, and there's one for the reservation form and one for the payment form. And if you want to test them out, see what they look like, you can always just open them in a new tab. And you can fill them out with fake profile information if you'd like, just to test it out, see what comes in, how it comes in. Once you submit this, it will go to your dashboard as a web reservation request or a web payment request. And they will be a different color when you submit it. And then if you are going to use the API, I would strongly recommend you check this box, allow API to merge profiles. If you do not, and you have a client already in there that fills out the reservation form, it's going to make an additional profile for that client. So over time, you might have 3 or 4 profiles for the exact same client. If you check this box, it will do a match process where it will check to see if that client's already in there. If enough things match, it will just put that in the already existing profile. Any questions on that? Sure. Yeah, so there's a pending agent and a paid agent commission. So if you want to look at things that are paid, you would go in here and select paid agent commission. And typically what I'll do is you can go January 1 through December 31st. You can either do it by commission paid or you can do it by travel date. So you can check that. Now, if you're not an admin, you're just going to have your own name here. If you are an admin, you can select all, some, however you want to do it. And then there's two options. Any of the reports you can show on screen, which is a quicker way. So this is showing that there's 2 reservations that were paid out for 2016 so far. If you're a user, it should be in here. You may have your admin person look at the manage users and see what your name is in the system. Paid agent commissions. Okay, if you're not seeing your name on that list, send an email, Steven with a PH at vacationcrm.com, and I will look into that for you. You know what? I'm sorry, you can just select show on screen because you don't have options as a non-admin. It's only going to select your name. It's only going to search your name. So I'm sorry. I'm used to seeing the admin side of it, so I've always seen that drop down. That would be a continuing tell. Yeah. So show on screen is quicker. Export to Excel. Obviously, you can hide stuff and get rid of columns you don't need, and you can save it to your computer for your own records. And then pending agent commission, I would recommend looking at that from time to time, maybe once a quarter. You can sort it by travel date and go through current and then show on screen, because you may see things in there that they travel, like this one. Well, these are all bad examples, but something that traveled in the past that you never saw got paid, and it's not tied as paid in the system. You might need to go back and look at it, why that didn't get paid out. So there could be commissions in there that you should have got paid. And the reports are, I love reports personally. I like to look and see what, if there's trends in my sales, things like that. So revenue by agent's a good one to look at if you just kind of want to see how you're doing for the year. I'll do the full year, sort of by travel date, and then show on screen. It'll show you kind of where you're making your sales, whether it be cruises, excursions, hotels, however you're breaking your sales down. And then it'll show you your expected commission that you have coming in. So it's a good way to see if you're on pace to make what you want to make as far as sales and commission go for the year. And you can even click on package, say, and break it down and see all of your actual bookings, who they were with, booking numbers, and you can even go further and click on that and actually go to that reservation.
I have a question about that workaround for the SunChat with the email.
Mm-hmm.
What is supposed to be moving over? Because I've tried it and not a lot comes over.
Yeah, for right now, what I've seen is flights, and depending on the confirmation email, the hotel name. So flights include airline, flight number, dates, times, departure city, arrival city, things like that are all coming in. As we do more testing, it'll pull in more information, but every confirmation email is not the same. So we got to do multiple tests with each supplier in order to dial the system in to get it to work, to pull in everything.
Okay, I did one that was just land only, and really all that came over was the name of the hotel. It didn't really.
Yeah, and you can send those to help at Vacation CRM. A lot of you have sent a lot over, but the more we have to work with to actually test, the quicker and the better it's going to get.
Okay, thanks. And I have a question along with that too. So some of the agents in our office, when the information populates, some of us get the air segments and the resort information, and then others just get air segments and it doesn't populate the resort.
Have you tried with 2 different agents on the same confirmation email to see if it's just some way they're copying and pasting it, or what?
Yes, we have. And it's weird because and I've even done it where I've signed in as the agent and it populates the hotel for me. But when she is signed into her own self, it doesn't populate it, and it seems weird. It's the difference. Like I'm on a Mac and they're on a Windows.
The only thing I could say that it could be is it may be the way that their email is set up to display HTML emails.
Okay.
Because the system has to actually look at the elements of that email and decide what is what. So if it's displayed differently, that can make a whole different outcome. So as we learn more about it, there may be settings that we'll figure out with Outlook or with Gmail or whatever your email program is that you may need to check or uncheck to get the best results. And as we figure that out, we'll definitely let all the users know.
Perfect. Thank you. Hi, Stephen. It's Heather.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just wondering if you could go over how to set up the agent profiles as an admin.
Sure.
The basic steps.
Yeah, so are you talking about adding a new one?
Yes, I never added everyone. I never.
Okay, so I'll add me to this if it'll let me. I don't know if this one's set up to have more, but let's try. Okay, so you click add new user and you'll have this screen. Administrator, obviously, that's going to give him all the rights in the system. They can look at all the different trips, or all the different agents' reports, things like that. So most of the time, this is not going to be checked. Allow viewing of other agents' trip data. This is going to allow them to view the dashboard as other agents, which even if they're not an admin, that's sometimes good to have if they're helping out another agent and they need to see if any final payments are upcoming that they don't know about, things like that. This is again for admins only. This will show all right here by default. That would be the default. User ID, you can make it whatever you want, but just to make it easy on yourself, or if they have a question from me, like what's my login, I would recommend just using a first name for that. If there's 2 agents with the same first name, first last initial, something like that. Put in their name, This stuff is going to be your login for integration again. If you're not using the supplier, you don't have to fill it out. If your agency is already set up, you don't have to email me again. You can just enter that in. Charisma and Hard Rock email. This, you want to use the email address that they have registered with those rewards programs for pre-registered bookings. So if it's different, then if their email is up here, just enter in the correct one. And then all of this stuff is pretty much just customizing, how you like to see stuff on the dashboard. So the number of days you're going to see the birthday on the dashboard. Currently Ray, and this is after that date. So default is 4 days after they return. You're going to see it on there, which I like to have a little buffer in there in case they get back on the weekend and you're not at your computer. Number of days I highlight going away, that's when it can be green. This one's a big one if your agency does a lot of groups. So let me show you. When you link a trip to a group, it's right here, and you click a drop down, and this will have all the groups for your agency. So if you do a lot of groups, this list can get pretty large. And they'll automatically drop off by default after 70 days. If you want to make that a shorter amount of time, you can, or a longer amount of time. But it just depends on your agency. And then you can also check this box to allow them to only see their own groups, not agency-wide groups. This is for formatting for phone numbers. If they need to enter like foreign country code phone numbers, you can uncheck, or you can uncheck this box. And then agent commission. This is what their percentage is. So you don't need to put a percent sign in there. Just put 80 or whatever it is, and then just click create.
They set up their own user invoice details. Do they have the option to use the agency details, or is it just start blank, the invoice details there?
They would just start blank. But what you can do if you want them or if they want a different invoice is now you can have templates. So you can create multiples. And I mean, the idea behind this, you could have a different template for different types of trips or for different agents, however you'd like. In my head, I would say, I'd make one for domestic travel, one for international travel, maybe one for land only. That way, the invoice disclaimer just isn't as long as possible, just to cover every type of trip. You can, cater it to that exact type of trip. Or you could do it by supplier. If different suppliers have different, policies as far as cancellations and things like that, you can do it however you want. But this allows you to do multiple different templates.
And that's available for everyone in the agency once the admin sets up the template?
Yeah, and the way they select which one they want is, just go to a trip, is right here. They would select which one they want. So name them something that they'll know what it is before they preview it. And then they can just click preview to make sure that's the right one, just double check. So you can have, I wouldn't put a ton in there, but it's nice to have a couple different options.
Okay, is there a limit to how many you can have? Like, can you typically have one per, group if there's different deadlines, that sort of stuff that you want to have in a group?
Yeah, I believe you could. And, I mean, eventually, if you keep doing it per group, you're going to have a lot in there, so I would remove them after that group's done and over with, just to keep it cleaned up a little bit. But you're going to see, you're going to have a lot of the information in the actual invoice. And what I would recommend doing, rather than changing your disclaimer all the time, because you don't want to forget something in there when you make a new one for each group, what I would do is I would just put notes in the actual reservation components. This doesn't have anything, but you can put in, like under the hotel, you can put, it'll say invoice comment, and you can put in whatever you want on there. So if there's any things you want to bring to the client's attention, just put it in there.
then just let them know it's set up just by saying, go to Vacation CRM and this is your login password and like have fun.
Yeah, so I would just make a temporary password for them. Once they get logged in, they can just click on their name to reset that to whatever they'd like.
Thank you.
And there's also, once you get the user in there, you can always edit the information here if you need to change anything. And then you'll see like allow other agents to view trips. So if I want all the agents to be able to view this agent's trip, I would check all. Or you could say I only want them to be able to view their own profiles. You can do that. Just depends on how open your agency is from agent to agent.
And they don't have access to that, so I'm the only one that can control their agency IDs and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that as an admin that only you can do. Like once a week probably I get an email from one of the agents at my agency that they'll ask that I add a hotel chain into the drop down because they can't, so I'll just have to go in here and add whatever's missing. And you just do that by clicking the admin code. Code is kind of like an abbreviation, so whatever in the description to it, you're actually going to see in the drop down. Things like that, an agent isn't going to have access to. Anybody else?
If no one else has another question, I'll ask another. In the search, I like to be able to search by phone number. And I have it, when you hit on my search, it'll say, last name, first name, and it'll also include the phone number. Okay, you have it too. So when I actually type a phone number in, it doesn't always bring up the number even if it is in the profile. Is it just because it has to be in the right format, if it's like has the parentheses, the dashes, or if it's just straight up numbers attached, we'll still pull it up.
That I don't know. I can check on that part. Email me.
Okay.
So that I'll know to ask, and I'll ask Bailiff because they're the ones that actually design the system, so they know exactly how that works. And you can search by other things too if you want to add more things to that. I just made a YouTube video about that the other day.
Okay.
But if anyone's curious, this
So that's like to do it by phone number, because like you see the missed call come in, and then you can kind of just pull up and you know who it is. If they didn't leave a voicemail, you can already, know who it was, so just Google the email.
Yep, I do that a lot. And I didn't think it mattered if there was the correct formatting, but there may be. Any other questions? Okay, one other thing I will add is we recently added a group status report. So you can click on that and see what that gives you. This is just a very clean and easy to read status of the group. So anything that says client will typically be information that you would typically share with your client. Anything that says agent is going to be stuff that you're going to keep to yourself, or at least some of it, like commissions and things like that. So these are really handy when you have clients that want to know, who's booked for the group, or any dates or anything like that within the group. Check out these 4 group reports. They are very helpful. Export it to Excel like this. and then you just attach that to them. And I like the Excel. If I'm going to do anything, if I just want to look real quick, I'll always do show on screen because it's just quicker. If I'm going to do anything else besides look at it, I always export it to Excel because, you know, I don't care about this column. You know, I can just hide that, hide whatever you don't want. So you can just look at only the information that you do want. With the show on screen, you can't edit any of that, you can't collapse anything, you're stuck with what it shows you. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. If you think of any questions later on or down the road, feel free to email me. I'll be glad to answer that for you. And keep up checking on the YouTube page as I add more things. Eventually there's going to be enough to get you through everything in the system.